Gavin Newsom finally released his tax returns. Here's what they reveal. For years, Gavin Newsom promised transparency. Now, California's governor has finally opened the books, but there's a catch. The release contains more than 700 pages of tax documents, and reporters were allowed to review them in person. They could take handwritten notes, but they were not allowed to photograph or remove the documents. So what exactly was revealed? And why did these tax returns become such a big political story? Let's break it down. Gavin Newsom is one of the most recognizable Democratic politicians in America. He has been California's governor since 2019, and he has increasingly been discussed as a possible presidential candidate for 2028. That makes his personal finances more than just a private matter. Politicians routinely face questions about where their money comes from, what businesses they own, and whether their financial interests could influence their public decisions. Newsom has long argued that political transparency matters. But this year, his finances came under renewed scrutiny amid federal investigations involving his family. Newsom has denied wrongdoing and has characterized the investigations as politically motivated. Then came the promise. Newsom said his tax returns would be released, and on July 31st, the documents finally became available. The release covered 4 years, from 2021 through 2024. The 2025 return was not included because the couple had filed for an extension and expected to complete it later this year. So what did the numbers show? Between 2022 and 2024, Gavin Newsom and his wife Jennifer Siebel Newsom reported roughly $1.7 to $2 million in annual income, according to the Associated Press. They also paid around $500,000 each year in combined federal and state taxes. But 2021 was very different. That year, the couple reported about $4.2 million in income. One major reason was the sale of a home in Marin County for nearly $6 million. The sale generated roughly $800,000 in profit. Newsom's income also comes from investments and businesses placed in a blind trust, including interests connected to the wine and hospitality industries. His salary as California governor, by comparison, was around $200,000. And that difference is important, because when people hear that a governor earns hundreds of thousands of dollars, they may assume that's where most of his household income comes from. For Newsom, it isn't. His political salary is only one piece of a much larger financial picture. The tax returns also reveal something interesting about Jennifer Siebel Newsom's finances. Her film company, Girls Club Entertainment, reported losses in most of the years covered. The couple also made significant charitable contributions. According to the Associated Press, their annual charitable giving ranged from roughly $40,000 to $65,000. Some of those contributions were not simply cash. In one case, clothing was listed as a charitable donation, including Armani clothing valued at about $45,000. And then there are the everyday expenses. The returns show that the Newsoms spent substantial amounts on child care and household employees. In other words, these documents provide a much more detailed picture of how a wealthy political family actually earns, spends, and manages money. But there's another reason this release is getting attention. It isn't just about how much Gavin Newsom makes. It's about transparency. Newsom had previously committed to releasing his tax returns annually, yet the newly released documents cover 4 years, and reporters were given controlled access rather than simply receiving a complete digital copy. That creates an unusual situation. The documents are technically available for examination,
But the public's ability to independently inspect and share them is more limited. And that leads to the bigger question. What does transparency really mean? Is it enough for a politician to say, "Here are hundreds of pages of documents"? Or should true transparency mean that journalists and ordinary citizens can easily access, analyze, compare, and verify those documents themselves? There is also a political calculation behind all of this. Newsom is approaching the end of his time as California governor, and as speculation grows about a possible 2028 presidential campaign, his finances are likely to receive even more attention. For a politician considering the White House, questions about wealth, business interests, taxes, investments, and potential conflicts of interest don't simply disappear. They become part of the public record. And Newsom's newly released tax returns give Americans a rare look at that financial picture. The numbers don't necessarily reveal a shocking secret. In fact, much of what they show is consistent with what you might expect from a wealthy politician and businessman. But they do reveal something important. Gavin Newsom isn't financially dependent on his governor's salary. His household income is connected to investments, businesses, property transactions, and his wife's professional activities. And now, for the first time in years, the public has a fresh opportunity to examine those numbers. More than 700 pages, 4 years of financial records, millions of dollars in income, hundreds of thousands in taxes, and one question that may follow Newsom all the way to 2028, was this transparency enough? Because sometimes the most interesting part of a political document isn't what it reveals, it's what questions it leaves behind.